The shadow auction sold to the darkest bidder. They say the darkest places on the internet are filled with things you can't unsee, hitman services, forbidden experiments, cursed rituals. I always thought it was urban legend, myths to scare rookies away from the deep web. But then, I found something worse. Something I wish I had never clicked on. It wasn't a marketplace for weapons or drugs or even human lives. It was an auction for shadows. I thought it was a joke. At first, some elaborate creepypasta site made by bored hackers. But when I watched the first auction end, when I saw the girl collapse as her shadow ripped itself free from her body, I knew it was real. And now I know what happens when your shadow gets sold to the highest bidder. Because mine is already up, for sale. It started late one night when I was scrolling through one of the darknet forums I sometimes visited out of curiosity. I was half bored, half looking for the kind of weirdness that you only find in places where people hide behind encrypted servers and anonymous avatars. That was when I saw the thread. It was buried deep in a corner of the forum that most people ignored. The post title was simple: The Shadow Auction, Invite Only. The comments below it were strange. Some laughed it off as a scam, others swore it was real, whispering about people who had vanished after attending. One user wrote, "Don't click unless you're ready to risk everything. They're always watching." I should have closed the tab right then, but curiosity is poison. And I clicked. The link didn't take me to a normal site. My screen flickered, loading symbols I didn't recognize until finally a black page appeared with a single line of text. "Welcome to the Shadow Auction. Verify invitation." My heart pounded. I didn't have an invitation, but I typed anyway, my hands shaking as I entered a random string of characters. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the page shifted. Access granted. Next auction begins in 24 hours. I stared at the screen, frozen. Somehow I was in. The next day I couldn't think of anything else. Work blurred by, conversations drifted past me. All I could see in my mind was that line, the shadow auction. By midnight I was back at my desk, lights off, headphones on, waiting. When the countdown reached 0, the page refreshed. The black screen dissolved into a live feed. At first it looked like any other live stream. A camera pointed at a dimly lit stage. A figure in a plague doctor mask stood at a podium, their gloved hands resting on a wooden gavel. Rows of masked silhouettes filled the seats in the background, their faces obscured, their bodies shifting like shadows themselves. "Welcome," the figure said, their voice distorted through a filter. "Tonight, we have something very special. A young girl from Eastern Europe, age 19, healthy, strong, and her shadow is eager to be owned." My skin crawled. I waited for the punchline, for someone to reveal it was all fake. But then the camera shifted and I saw her. The girl sat on a chair, trembling. Tears streaked her face. Behind her, her shadow writhed on the wall, moving independently of her body. It twisted and bent like an animal straining at a leash. She cried out as the plague doctor raised the gavel. "Shall we begin the bidding at 10,000? Hands shot up in the crowd. The numbers climbed fast. 20,000, 50, 100. Each time the bids rose, the girl screamed louder, clutching at her chest as though something inside her was being torn out. When the gavel slammed down for the final time, her shadow snapped free. It peeled itself from the wall, a dark, writhing shape, and melted toward the masked winner like smoke. The girl collapsed instantly, her body pale, lifeless, her eyes blank. I ripped off my headphones, my stomach lurching. My whole body shook as the screen went black, leaving only a message. "Thank you for attending. New lots coming soon." That was the night I learned the shadow auction was real, and that was only the beginning. I didn't sleep after what I saw. I sat in the dark, The monitor's afterglow still burned into my eyes, my headphones cold around my neck. Every time I shut my eyes, I saw her shadow peel away like wet paper and slide across the floor toward the buyer's feet. Morning came and passed like a blur. By evening, I was back at the desk, the room shut tight, the curtains closed. I told myself I was opening the site again to prove it was fake, to catch a glitch, a trick, anything. But the truth was simpler and uglier. I needed to know how it worked. When the countdown ended, the stream returned. Same stage, same plague doctor at the podium, same velvet curtain behind them, black as a hole. The camera angle was tighter tonight, as if the lens itself was leaning forward to listen. Title cards appeared on the screen in clean white letters. House rules, no real names, masks on, mics off, funds pre-escrowed, no refunds. Successful bidders receive binding phrase and ownership. Seal transfer completes within 72 hours. Breakage voids claim. Shadow returns to pool. The plague doctor tapped the gavel once. Welcome back, patrons. Tonight's first lot is a demonstration piece for the newcomers. I felt those words land squarely on me. A metal tray was wheeled out. On it sat a candle, a metronome, and a small wooden box wrapped with black cord. A man was brought on stage, mid-30s, pale, shaking. His eyes kept darting toward the curtain as if something back there was breathing. His shadow clung to him at an odd angle, as if it were a person trying to stand close without being noticed. "Observe," the doctor said. They lit the candle. The flame leaned right under an invisible draft, but the man's shadow leaned left, late, as if deciding only after the fact. When the metronome started, the tick-tock carved the silence into pieces. The shadow's head moved out of rhythm, a beat behind, then a beat ahead. The doctor opened the box. Inside lay what looked like a stamp, an antique signet with a symbol I couldn't place, part knot, part eye, part spiral. When the doctor pressed it to the stage, the lights flickered, and the man's shadow shivered like water. "This," the doctor said, "is the ownership seal. Without it, a shadow is a rumor. With it, a shadow is a contract." The chat window on the side of the feed came alive. Usernames like Sable Jackal, Moth, Archive 9, Fever Room posted single characters, E.T., little taps to show they were awake and hungry. A moderator named Usher pinned a message. Bidding tokens locked. No off-platform deals. Violations are culled. The word culled sat in my throat like a stone. The bidding began at 5,000. The man kept whispering, "Please." But his mic was cut. The camera caught his mouth forming the word over and over. His shadow didn't beg. It stood taller. It stretched, testing the floor, testing the space between his feet and the buyer's chairs. When the gavel fell at 82,000, the room applauded with palms that didn't sound quite human. I lowered my head into my hands and tried not to throw up. The doctor turned to the camera. "For those asking about logistics, the body is of no interest to us. The merchandise is the shadow. The buyer receives a binding phrase and the seal mark to confirm transfer. Side effects for the host are expected: thinning, loss of appetite, loss of mass, occasional transparency. Transparency." The word made the hair on my arms rise. I thought of the girl from the first night, how her cheeks had hollowed between one bid and the next. I took screenshots. I recorded the stream. I copied the chat. When the lot ended, I stopped the recording and checked the file. Corrupt. Every frame was there except the stage, each image a perfect rectangle of black. The player refused to handle the audio, the screenshots saved as completely white PNGs, the chat log exported as empty. I sat very still and realized that the auction wasn't just hiding from search engines or law enforcement, it was hiding from memory. A private message popped up. "Usher, you. First time, don't archive, observe." I didn't reply. I stared at the blinking cursor for a long time, then closed the PM. The stream cut to a holding card, intermission, 15:00. A soft hum played, like an old refrigerator. I noticed that the hum was keeping time with my breathing. I forced myself to breathe slower. The hum matched me again. The second lot was different. A woman in her 40s stood under the lights, arms limp at her sides. She looked dead on her feet, but her shadow looked wide awake. It lifted its hand to wave, while hers stayed still. Someone in chat typed, "Strong separation, good vitality return." The bids jumped in thick blocks, 5,000, 10,000, 25. Every time a figure blinked into being, the woman swayed. "Explain vitality return," I heard myself whisper. No one on stream could hear me, and yet the plague doctor's masked head tilted as if listening. "For those new to our house," they said, "a well-kept shadow sustains its owner. Strength, clarity, time. A rare lot can add years." The way they said years made my skin crawl. The buyer, Archive 9, won at a number that didn't fit in my head. The doctor stamped the seal. The shadow crossed the floor like wind. I closed my eyes. I made promises to myself. This was the last minute I would spend here, the last second. I would report it. I would smash my computer. I would burn my modem and throw the ashes in the river. I opened my eyes and leaned closer to the screen. The final lot of the night wasn't a person on stage. It was a page in a catalog. A clean listing appeared with a grayscale photo that refused to load above the neck. Lot 17, male, 32, health baseline, good. Behavioral, observant, persistent. Shadow separation. Index, emerging. Status, pre-cert. A timer sat where the bid button should be. It counted down from 72 me. A chat bubble popped beside the listing. Usher, pinned. Pre-cert lots are by nomination only. Host is notified via environmental cues. No direct contact. Monitor for 3 days. If separation rises above 0.32, we move to sale. The plague doctor spoke softly, almost kindly. We let the shadow practice. We let it learn its edges. The catalog flicked to a second page. Nomination ledger. A vertical list of alphanumeric hashes scrolled upward. At the bottom, a new line appeared, still warm, the numbers rolling into place like a clock finding its hour. I don't know how I knew, but I knew. My mouth went dry. My fingers went cold. I copied the hash to my clipboard and pasted it into a local text file that immediately crashed. The stream ended without ceremony. The window closed itself. The route I'd used to find the site no longer resolved. My browser history folded in on itself like paper soaked in oil. When I stood up, my legs didn't feel like mine. I went to the bathroom and turned on the light. For a long time, I didn't look in the mirror. When I finally raised my eyes, I didn't check my face first. I checked the floor. My shadow was there, exactly where it should be, connected to my feet. It lifted its hand a moment before I did. I froze. I tried again. I raised my right hand slowly, slow enough that no lag, no trick of muscle or eye could explain it. My shadow raised its hand first. A beat ahead. I dropped my arm. It kept its up for a second longer, like a grudging bow. I shut off the light. I stood in the dark, palms against the cool sink. I could feel my pulse in my gums, a dull throb that didn't match the beating in my chest. Something was counting me, measuring me, laying me out in small, invisible lines. I opened my laptop. No internet. The router lights were on, but every page read no route. I opened a terminal and pinged the loopback. Replies came back a hair too slowly, like the machine was thinking about whether it wanted to be a machine tonight. I typed the hash I'd seen. I saved the file. It saved this time, but the name changed by itself. Ledger me.txt. I double-clicked it. One line sat at the top in small neutral text, pre-cert lot, pending. Separation index 0.18. I read it again. I didn't understand what separation index measured in code, but I understood it in bone. It was a ruler pressed against the edge between me and the thing that looked like me on the floor. A private message appeared again. Usher, you watched nicely. Don't starve it, don't flood it. Keep a regular schedule. We want clean numbers. I typed back before I knew I was typing. Who nominated me? The typing indicator appeared, disappeared, appeared again. A buyer, with taste. Cancel it, I wrote. We don't cancel, they answered. We conclude. I closed the laptop so hard the plastic creaked. In the dark, with no screen, with no hum, with nothing but the night pressing on the windows, I still felt watched. Not by cameras, not by the site. Watched by the flatness on the floor. I lay on the bed and stared at the ceiling until my eyes burned. Somewhere in the room, my metronome, one I hadn't touched in years, ticked once. I didn't own a metronome. I told myself that. I said it out loud. I don't own a metronome. Tick. I got up and turned on the light. I looked toward the corner by the bookshelf. There it sat, small and black, the pendulum still. The tick had come from somewhere else, from something that didn't need a pendulum to keep time. I turned off the light again and watched the floor. The shadow stretched itself very slightly, like a cat waking. It settled back into place when I breathed in. It swelled when I breathed out. We were sharing a body, and the lease had started. On the laptop screen, which I hadn't opened, a new line etched itself onto the glass in pale gray, like fog freezing into letters. Separation index 0.21. I whispered to it, to the black shape, stitched to my feet, to the thing that had never had a choice in following me. Please, I said, and stay. It moved, not away, not toward me. Just moved, like a thought being had by someone else. And somewhere in a room with velvet curtains and a candle that burned without consuming itself, a masked figure wrote a number on a card and slid it into a slot labeled Pre-Cert. Day 1. Woke with the feeling that something had been standing over me all night. My mouth was dry, my skin clammy, and for a moment I didn't want to open my eyes. I already knew what I would see. And when I finally forced my lids apart, there it was on the wall, the shape that was supposed to be mine but wasn't. My shadow was slumped in the wrong angle, head tilted toward me as though it had been watching me sleep. I bolted upright. The shadow delayed, then snapped into place. The lag was worse now, visible, undeniable. I couldn't lie to myself anymore. The index was climbing. I spent the day trying to distract myself. I worked. I ran errands. I sat in the diner downtown and ordered coffee after coffee. But it didn't matter where I went. On the sidewalk, my shadow dragged half a beat late, stretching like taffy. Inside the diner, its arm lifted to grab the spoon before I did. The waitress noticed. She didn't say a word, but her eyes lingered, confused, before she looked away quickly, like pretending she hadn't seen anything. Back home, my laptop greeted me with a new file on the desktop. I hadn't touched it. I swear I hadn't. The file name was auctionstatus.html. My finger hovered over the trackpad, but I already knew I'd open it. I couldn't stop myself. The page was simple, black background, white text. Pre-cert lot. Active. Separation index 0.27. Bidding interest high. Beneath it, a scrolling log of usernames flickered as they posted amounts. The numbers made my chest tighten. 50,000, 75, 100,000. They were bidding on me before the auction even began. I slammed the laptop shut, but the numbers burned behind my eyes. They weren't just buying shadows. They were buying futures. Years of strength, clarity, vitality drained from me and handed to them like pocket change. I staggered to the mirror. My skin looked pale, stretched thin. My eyes were sunken, rimmed with gray. I was already losing. The next livestream began that night, and against every shred of reason, I logged in. The stage glowed with sickly light. The plague doctor at the podium looked directly into the camera. "We have a special lot tonight. A preview for our eager patrons, a host who has been observing us closely." My heart dropped. I knew. Even before the catalog page appeared, I knew. The screen shifted. There it was. Lot 23, male, 32, shadow index 0.31, status, preview bid. My photo, or what was left of it, faded in, blurred above the neck. My body sagged in grayscale, already a little translucent. My shadow in the image wasn't blurred, it was crisp. Sharp, almost smiling, the chat erupted. Moth, beautiful separation. Strong lines, archive 9. Potential longevity gain, 15 years. Fever room, opening with $250,000. I couldn't breathe. My fingers shook as the numbers climbed higher and higher. 500,000, 700,000. The plague doctor raised a hand for silence. Patience. Full auction in 48 hours, but let our bidders express their interest. The gavel struck once, not to close the sale, but to bless it, and I felt it. In my chest, in my bones, like someone had knocked on the inside of my ribs. I staggered from my desk, pacing the room. "No," I muttered. "No, this isn't real." But when I looked down, my shadow didn't move. It stayed standing, arms crossed, looking up at me like a man in the audience watching the stage. My breath caught. My knees buckled. I whispered, "You're not me." And for the first time, my shadow whispered back. I couldn't make out the words, just the low scrape of a voice formed from absence. But I knew the meaning. I knew what it wanted. The bids ended at 900,000 before the stream cut to black. A message replaced it. "See you in 48 hours. Slammed the laptop shut. The room seemed too quiet, the air too thin. My phone buzzed. A new text from an unknown number. "Don't run. We're already holding your place." I turned off the phone. I unplugged everything. I even flipped the breakers and plunged the apartment into darkness. But the hum didn't stop. It came from the floor, from the wall, from the very air. The sound of numbers counting, climbing. That night, I dreamed of an auction house filled with masked faces. And I was on stage, bound to a chair, my shadow standing proudly beside me, waiting to be sold. When I woke, my skin was colder, my breath shallower, my body lighter. I looked at the wall, and for a full 3 seconds, my shadow wasn't there. When it came back, it smiled. The next 2 days were the longest of my life. I barely ate. I barely slept. Every mirror, every pane of glass, every surface that caught, a reflection showed me the same thing. My shadow no longer obeyed me. It lingered, stretched, lagged. Sometimes it walked ahead of me, dragging me forward. Other times it stayed behind, as though testing how far it could stray without snapping the thread between us, and I was wasting away. My cheeks hollowed. My eyes sank. I measured myself in the mirror and found I was thinner by the hour, as though something invisible was siphoning me. Every time my phone buzzed, every time my laptop screen flickered, I knew it was them. The buyers, the bidders, the audience, watching me like a prized calf before slaughter. I thought I was losing my mind until I saw someone else. It happened in town. I was walking past the pharmacy when I noticed a man leaning heavily on the wall. He looked like he was dying, skin gray, lips pale, clothes hanging off a frame that was nothing but bones. But what stopped me cold was his shadow. It wasn't under him. It was slinking beside him upright, moving faster than he did, as though tugging him forward like a cruel dog on a leash. Our eyes met. His lips trembled. He whispered, "Don't fight it." And then he collapsed, right there on the pavement. People rushed to help him, but I knew it was useless. His shadow had already gone. I watched it slip around the corner, free of him, like an animal released from its cage. I couldn't breathe. He had been like me, another lot in the ledger. And now he was nothing but an empty body, discarded after the sale. That night I sat in the dark with my laptop glowing before me. The auction was live again. The plague doctor at the podium welcomed the bidders with a flourish. Behind him, a woman was led onto the stage, thin, fragile, barely standing. Her shadow loomed taller than her, massive, swollen, stretching up the curtain as if it were the true body, and she was just the husk. "This," the plague doctor said, "is what a prime shadow looks like before transfer. Notice the separation, notice the vitality imbalance. The buyer tonight will feel 10 years younger within hours." The chat exploded with excitement. Bids surged. 200,000, 3, 4. The woman coughed weakly, then fell to her knees. Her shadow didn't kneel. It stood proud, soaking in the attention. When the gavel fell at 600,000, the transfer was instant. The shadow slipped free, stretching across the stage into the buyer's arms like black silk. The woman crumpled to the floor, motionless. The buyer stood up from the front row and removed his mask. My stomach twisted. He wasn't younger. He was reborn. His eyes glowed with vigor, his skin flushed, his frame straighter, stronger. He lifted his arms as though he had just been resurrected, while the audience applauded like zealots at a sermon. "This is the price of a shadow," the plague doctor said. "Life from one poured into another. The perfect transaction." I wanted to scream. I wanted to shout that it wasn't perfect, it was monstrous. But the bidders weren't monsters in their own eyes. They were addicts, desperate for more years, more vitality, more time, and they would drain as many lives as it took to keep themselves young. I closed the stream. I couldn't watch anymore. But the words followed me into the silence. The perfect transaction. When I went to bed that night, I left the light on, hoping it would keep the shadows at bay. But when I woke at 3 a.m., the bulb had gone dark. My room was lit only by the pale glow of the laptop screen, though I hadn't touched it. On the display was a single message: Lot 23 final auction, 12 hours, and beneath it, a note written just for me. "The bids are already in. They want you, Michael. Don't disappoint them." I looked to the wall. My shadow was standing, arms outstretched, as if welcoming the applause only it could hear. The countdown to my auction ticked in my head like a bomb. 12 hours. 11, 10. Every minute was another drop of sand falling through an hourglass I couldn't turn. I tried everything to shut it out. I turned off the laptop. I smashed my phone. I unplugged the router. But it didn't matter. The messages still reached me, on the walls, in the floor, in the hum of the refrigerator, even in my own reflection. I went into the bathroom, splashed cold water on my face, and looked into the mirror. My body was deteriorating, skin pale, lips cracked, eyes hollow. But worse was what happened behind me. My shadow didn't follow. It moved when it wanted. It lifted its arms, tilted its head, studied me like I was the reflection, not it. I whispered, "Why are you doing this?" My shadow mouthed the words back, but a second later, out of sync, like it was mocking me, I staggered back. The mirror fogged, even though there was no steam, no heat. Letters scratched themselves across the glass. "You're next." Panic clawed at me. I ran outside, desperate for air. The street was empty, the sky bruised with storm clouds. That was when I saw them. 3 figures standing at the far corner, dressed in masks like the bidders in the stream. They weren't supposed to be real, not outside the screen, but they were. One lifted a hand in a lazy wave, and even from a block away I recognized the symbol stamped on the glove, the ownership seal. They had come for me. I turned and ran. My lungs burned, my legs ached, but my shadow ran effortlessly, stretching out ahead of me, pulling me like a tether. Every time I stumbled, it moved faster, as if it were trying to leave me behind. I screamed into the night, but no one opened their doors. No one came to help. The whole town was silent, complicit, asleep while I was hunted. I reached the woods at the edge of Crestwood and collapsed against a tree, gasping. For a moment I thought I was safe, but then I saw it. My shadow, no longer on the ground. It clung to the tree trunks, climbing them like a spider, stretching into shapes that weren't mine. I backed away, heart hammering, and tripped over something in the dirt, a box, wooden, wrapped in black cord, just like the one from the auction demonstration. With trembling hands, I opened it. Inside was the seal. The spiral eye knot burned faintly, glowing with sickly light. My shadow froze, staring at it. The forest went dead silent. I felt the weight of choice press down on me. If I stamped it, would I claim my shadow back, or would I only bind myself tighter to the auction? Before I could decide, a whisper coiled through the trees, not from the bidders, not from the plague. "Doctor, from my shadow itself, let me go." The words crawled into my ears, scraping against my skull. I dropped the box, clutching my head. "No," I shouted. "You're mine." It laughed, a dry, empty laugh that wasn't mine. And then it pulled away, stretching across the ground, retreating into the woods like a dark tide. I stumbled after it, screaming, until I realized the truth. I wasn't chasing it. It was leading me. By dawn, I was back at my apartment, filthy, shaking. The laptop was on again, waiting for me. The auction lobby filled the screen. My lot was pinned to the top, Lot 23, final sale. Countdown, 2 hours. The chat was already buzzing. Moth, separation index, 0.46, excellent specimen, archive, 9, will. Break 1.5 million. Fever room. He'll fade fast once it's done. Worth every cent. My vision blurred with rage and fear. They were talking about me like cattle, like I wasn't even human anymore. My hands shook on the keyboard. I typed into the chat, "Stop this. I'm not for sale. Cancel it." The feed went still. For a long moment, no one replied. Then the plague doctor leaned into the camera, mask filling the screen. His voice slid into my bones like ice. "Hosts don't cancel, only buyers." The gavel lifted. My shadow appeared on stage beside him, taller, sharper, smiling in ways I never could. The bidding began. The moment the gavel struck, my body convulsed. It wasn't a sound. It was an impact, like someone had slammed a hammer against my chest. My vision blurred, and when I could see again, the feed filled my screen. I wasn't just watching the auction anymore. I was inside it. The stage stretched beneath me. My legs wouldn't move. My hands were bound to the arms of a wooden chair. The plague doctor loomed at the podium, and the audience of masked bidders leaned forward, silent, hungry. And there, standing proudly in the spotlight, was my shadow. It wasn't tethered to me anymore. It stood upright, its head cocked, its mouth twisted into a cruel grin. My grin, only darker, only freer. Lot 23, the plague doctor announced. Healthy specimen, prime separation achieved. We will begin the bidding at 200,000. My stomach lurched. The voices erupted in a frenzy. Moth, 250. Archive, 9, 500,000. Fever room, 700. Every bid slammed into me like a fist. My chest caved, my skin chilled. The higher the numbers climbed, the weaker I felt. I tried to scream, to beg, but no sound left my mouth. My throat burned with silence. Then something worse happened. With each bid, my shadow grew stronger. Its movements sharpened, its body grew darker, more solid. It looked back at me with mocking pity, raising its hand to wave at the crowd as if it were the true host, and I was the husk. The plague doctor rapped the gavel again. 1 million. Do I hear 1.1? My head spun. My body sagged against the chair, bones like sand. I whispered in my mind, "Please don't let it end like this." And then faintly I heard her, a voice, not from the bidders, not from the doctor, from somewhere in the static. "Michael, fight." It was Emily, the intern who had warned me before. Her whisper cut through the noise, a thread of defiance in a storm of greed. I clung to it, my thoughts screaming, "How? Tell me how?" But the gavel pounded again, drowning her out. 1.4 million, the doctor said smoothly. Do I hear 1.5? Archive 9. 1.5 million. The crowd erupted in applause. My shadow bowed deeply, arms outstretched, basking in their praise. I felt my heart seize, like it was being wrung out by invisible hands. My breath came in shallow gasps. I was unraveling. The doctor raised the gavel for the final time. Sold. But before it could fall, the lights flickered. The feed glitched. The crowd hissed like snakes. For a moment, I wasn't on the stage. I was back in my room, slumped in the chair, staring at the laptop. The screen fractured, pixels bleeding like ink, and in the distortion, Emily's face appeared. Her eyes were hollow, her hair scorched, but her mouth formed the words with furious clarity. "Burn it." My body jolted. Fire. That was the only way. Fire could sever the contract. Fire could destroy the seal. The gavel slammed down. My shadow snapped. Its head toward me, grinning wider, sharper, its teeth impossibly long. The audience roared with triumph. The screen went black, and I realized I had less than 24 hours before my shadow left me for good. The next day, I moved through the world like a ghost. People brushed past me on the sidewalk without noticing. At the coffee shop, the barista looked straight through me. When I checked my reflection in the glass door, I nearly screamed. My body was pale, translucent, like sunlight passing through smoke. But my shadow, it was darker than ever. Bold, crisp, almost solid. The sale had gone through. My shadow wasn't mine anymore. That night, I locked every door and window, lit every candle I could find, and sat in the middle of the room clutching a kitchen knife like it could do anything. The laptop screen blinked awake without me touching it. A message scrolled across the black background. Transfer complete. Owner, Archivanine. I whispered the name out loud, my throat raw. Archive 9. The screen flickered. A new window opened, live video feed. A figure sat in a grand, dimly lit room lined with books and glass cases. The mask they wore was smooth, featureless, polished white. They leaned toward the camera. Their voice was filtered, but steady, calm. "Michael, you should be honored. Your shadow is exquisite. Rarely do we find such vitality." I shook my head, clutching the knife tighter. "Give it back. Take your money. Take whatever, just give it back." The masked figure tilted their head, amused. "It isn't yours anymore. It's mine. Look behind you if you doubt it." My blood froze. Slowly, I turned. My shadow wasn't under me. It was standing at the far end of the room, upright, peeling itself off the floor with lazy grace. Its grin widened as it stepped forward, silent, patient. I staggered back, knife shaking in my hand. The buyer's voice purred through the speakers. Do you feel it? Every breath you take now belongs to me. Every heartbeat, a gift I allow you to keep, for now. I lunged forward, stabbing at the shadow. The blade sliced through nothing, only air. The shadow laughed, a hollow, rasping sound that rattled the windows. My chest clenched, pain lancing through me. Archive 9 chuckled softly. You can't harm it. You can't even touch it. The more you struggle, the faster you'll fade. I dropped the knife, gasping. My vision blurred, my knees buckled. I could feel myself thinning, dissolving, as if my body were becoming the reflection instead of the source. And then, Emily's voice again, whispering through the static, faint but desperate. Michael, fire. Fire severs the claim. I snapped, my head toward the candles flickering around the room, my last defense, my last hope. Archive 9's voice deepened, urgent now. Don't you dare. Don't listen to her, she's already gone. She belongs to no one, and soon you'll join her. The shadow lunged toward me, crossing the floor in a blur. I grabbed the nearest candle and thrust it forward. Flame met darkness. The shadow recoiled with a screech that wasn't sound but vibration, shaking the room like an earthquake. The buyer's calm cracked for the first time. Fool, you'll destroy yourself. My hand trembled around the candle, wax burning my skin. But I didn't let go. For the first time, the shadow looked afraid. I turned toward the laptop, Emily's face flickering faintly in the pixels. Her eyes burned with urgency. Burn the seal. End it before the transfer completes fully. The screen flashed white, then black. When the image cleared, the plague doctor stood at the podium once more, gavel raised, speaking directly to me. Careful. Lot 23, if you break the seal, you break everything. There is no return. Behind him, my shadow stretched taller than the curtain, towering, monstrous, still tethered faintly to my feet, but pulling harder inch by inch. My body sagged. My skin grew thinner, paler. I had hours left, maybe less. I had one choice left, and I knew it had to be made in fire. The night dragged like a blade across my skin. Every tick of the clock felt like a countdown to erasure. My shadow loomed in the corner of the room, taller than the ceiling, eyes glowing like pits of black fire. I could barely stand anymore. My hands trembled, my chest was hollow, my reflection in the window so faint it looked like a memory fading. On the laptop screen, the plague doctor leaned close, mask filling the display. The transfer is almost complete. When your separation index reaches 1.0, you will vanish. Your shadow will live on in service to its buyer. Accept it, Michael. It's the way of things. I whispered through cracked lips. No, not yet. I staggered to the box I had found in the woods, the wooden box bound with black cord. Inside, the seal still glowed faintly, pulsing like a rotten heart. Emily's voice whispered from everywhere at once. Burn it. Burn the seal, and you sever the chain. I grabbed the box with both hands, though it seared my palms. My shadow hissed, stepping closer, towering over me. Archive 9's voice echoed from the laptop, furious now. Stop! You don't know what you're doing. Without your shadow, you are nothing. You'll dissolve before the dawn. I'd rather vanish than belong to you, I rasped. I kicked the candles over. Flames spread across the floor, climbing up the curtains, licking the walls. Smoke filled the air. My shadow shrieked, its mouth opening impossibly wide, its arms thrashing as if it were tethered to the burning box. The plague doctor pounded the gavel in rage, the audience screaming in the background like 1,000 static voices. Michael! Break the seal and you break yourself, Archive 9 roared. But Emily's voice rose above it all, fierce, desperate. Do it now. With the last of my strength, I threw the seal into the fire. The wood cracked, the cord split, the symbol burned white hot, then collapsed into ash. My shadow convulsed. It tore itself apart, fragments ripping free and scattering into the flames. I felt the connection snap, like a rope severed from my chest. My knees gave out. I collapsed onto the floor as fire swallowed the room. When I opened my eyes, the fire was gone. The room was untouched. The laptop sat dark and lifeless. My shadow lay beneath me again, thin, faint, obedient. For the first time in weeks, it was mine. But something was wrong. My body was transparent, my skin glowing faintly with the same white light that had consumed the seal. I stood, trembling, and saw that my shadow wasn't solid either. It flickered, as though it were deciding whether to stay attached to me at all. A final message appeared on the laptop screen. Lot 23. Unsold. Status: dissolved. I left the apartment at dawn. The streets were empty. My body grew lighter with every step, as though I were drifting apart. People passed by me without seeing me. Their shadows dragged behind them, obedient, unaware of how fragile the tether really was. I reached the edge of town and looked down at my feet. My shadow looked back. For a long moment we stared at each other. Then it whispered, faint and broken, "Are you free, or are you gone?" And before I could answer, the sun rose. My body shimmered, scattering like dust in the light. My shadow dissolved, and I was no more. They say the dark web hides things no one should see. If you ever stumble on the shadow auction, close your laptop. Burn it if you have to. Don't click. Don't watch. Don't let them notice you, because once your name enters the ledger, your shadow no longer belongs to you, and when your shadow is gone, so are you.